Okay, I'm going to try to make this fairly quick. This is kind of a correction to an earlier video I was posting about how to create a character real quick. And I was doing it, I'm going to apologize. First of all, I was doing it on my Mac, which it doesn't have the same tool set that I have, and it's not the same workflow at all. And I thought I was trying to simplify the process for somebody, and I realized that I was setting them in error. So I want to talk about just today the creation of the torso, and specifically about the errors and problems with stacking shapes versus not stacking shapes. So we're going to start again with, we have Kirk. I'm not going to go through the whole process here, but and I'm going to expand this image fairly large, even though uh, if I was drawing this character, I would actually not make it this big, but I just want to concentrate on the torso, so I want to show you something. Now, before I was trying to trace this, and on my other machine, on the Mac, I thought it was an artifact on the Mac, but it isn't. It's apparently with Animator Studio. Ideally, in order to actually create use this as a reference image and trace it, you would be able to go into the image itself. I'm going to bring layer settings over here, and you would reduce the opacity to, say, I don't know, maybe 30% or something. And that would make a good tracing image, you can see. But the problem with that is you really can't use that as a tracing image. And I'll show you why in a second. If we go in and create a thing to trace with it, you notice that as I drag the mouse, the image itself loses its transparency. It gets refreshed each time as I move any point on the screen. By holding it down, the transparency disappears, and thus that would make it difficult if you're trying to move points around, particularly in some of these areas where it's darker. Kind of defeats the whole purpose of having a lighter image. It might work for some of you, and if you don't mind the fact that as you drag it around you can't, but see that even adjusting it you wouldn't be able to adjust it, because as soon as you, yeah, see, so this really doesn't work. So, and there's no settings I can find in display quality that change that. So unless I'm missing something completely, which I don't think I am, it really doesn't work to change the opacity. So what can you do? Well, here's what I normally do, and what I tried not to do last time was I was trying to simplify the process, but evidently simpler doesn't work. So we'll do it the hard way. What I do is I create with autofill, I create another layer. So you notice I've got this layer on top of Kirk, and this is going to be my kind of I don't know what you want to call it. It's the transparency layer or something. I mean, it's not really the transparency because it's not going to be transparent. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into, if you notice here, I'm going to go into the fill and adjust the opacity there to where I get an effect that's similar to what I want in terms of how much image it's going to show. And then, now that I've got that done, then when I go to another vector image, you notice I've got the same effect as if I were to have adjusted the transparency on the actual image layer itself by putting that shape in between. But the nice thing about it is now this layer here is not going to change as I move the mouse around. So now I've got a tracing image that I can still see while I move this around. So that's the first part of the process. Second part of the process, and I did it real quick, so hopefully you'll notice it, but I'm going to go back here again and create it again, is that when I start my initial shape, I do my initial rectangle, I'm going to turn off autofill and auto stroke. Very important to turn both of those off. The reason being is if I don't, then when I actually create this rectangle, it will make it a shape. Right now, it really isn't a shape. It's a set of curves. Actually, it is a curve with a set of segments, but that's technical. But it isn't a shape. If I were to go to draw, for example, see, I can't lower or hide the shapes or do anything with it. I can't. There's no shape here. So anyway, there's any way I can. Whoops, I'm creating other things here. There's any way I can select this shape. It isn't. I just keep creating things instead of, yeah. There's no shape select is what I'm trying to say. Is I can't hit Q and get to a shape select. So we don't want a shape, because if there is a shape, let me first show you the bad way. I've got a backing out here. So I'm gonna turn on autofill and create the shape. Okay, and now I'm gonna do what I did before, which is create a point on this shape And now I've got another I've subdivided this original shape, and I want to create further shapes out of that. So I select those points that I want. I hit U, and I hit spacebar, and that creates a shape. But unfortunately, it created a shape on top of a shape. And this can get you into trouble, particularly with anti-aliasing effects. I can't necessarily show you an anti-aliasing effect because they pop up at the weirdest times, and usually involving red and blue. So if this original shape, for example, was blue, I might be able, and then I hid the edges here, we might be able to see an anti-aliasing effect if I render this out. Pretty tough, but sometimes you'll be able to see anti-aliasing effects in those shapes. So in order to do that, we don't want original shapes. So if I click this shape, for example, and I go hide, you'll see that there's still a shape behind there. So we don't want that. We don't want a shape to start with if we're going to create sub-shapes inside of that shape, if that makes sense to you. So instead, I'm going to start all over. And so when I create my shapes to begin with, I'm going to have autofill turned off and just be creating the curve itself and work with the curve. And as I work with the curve, the other way of doing it, if I wanted to create a shape, I could create a shape and just put it as the shirt itself, and then when I wanted to create the torso, I could create the torso as an add-on shape. But I think this is just easier, is just not to create shapes to begin with, and then do them all at once. So I'm going to do this real quick, so we're not wasting too much time here. Actually, you know what? I am going to show you. I'll do both ways. I'm going to show you the add-on because you might want to do it that way as well, and you might find need to add it on. So this isn't going to be fantastic, just a down and dirty sort of creation for this this darn guy that has a waistline that I would kill for. And there's this crotch area, there's that, and then I'm going to drag across because I'm going to create this torso area. And drag down here, and see, I can do that because I'm actually not creating shapes, I'm just creating other segments or other curves on this. I haven't created any shapes yet. So now if I want to create shapes, then of course I would go in. By the way, that my basic construction method, you notice I'm going to elaborate on this. I was going to elaborate on this is I start with a rectangle and then I add points and sculpt them as I go. My tool allows me to both add points, and then holding down the Alt key, I can also then shape those points at the same time. And see, I can move them around. So I don't have to change tools. If you're watching up here, I'm still on Swiss Army tool. I haven't changed any tools as I'm moving around. So this makes it a lot quicker not to have to go to add point and then to modify curve. It's just simpler. And these tools are available for free to folks on our animatorsforum.com, of which you should be seeing the logo at the bottom of the screen. So if you like to have that ability to combine tools, I would highly recommend it. It speeds up your workflow a great deal. And so now I'm going to select those points for the torso. And notice I'm just creating a shape for that torso. And once again, I'm going to select the points for the shirt. But this time I'm going to get rid of the points. Oops. Get rid of the points down here because I do not want to create an extra shape. Remember, extra shape on top of that, but I have to select these points here, and I also want to deselect those points. So it makes it a little more complicated in terms of selecting your points, but when you get it right, then you have just the shape that you need. And then this one here, and that is the correct shape. So now I've got, but you notice I can tell there's a shape underneath this shape. And how can I tell that? Because the checkerboard still shows me that there's a shape underneath there. So if I go here and I hide that shape, you can see there's still a shape underneath there. So didn't want to do that, so I'm going to back this out a little bit until I get back to, oh, maybe there wasn't a shape under there. Maybe not. Oh, all right, spoke too soon. All right, let's go forward. Early in the morning. Did I mention how early it is here? Okay. But in any case, the important point is that you're seeing how to create the shape, only the shape that I want by just selecting the right points on the line here. And there is that shape there. And then I'm going to select these points here only, and that is that shape there too. Okay, so go there, make that black, go here, make this gold, and here, and make that black as well. And there I actually have a shirt torso drawn correctly without extra shapes, and so there won't be any anti-aliasing issues. Now, if you wanted to draw and wanted to add on shapes onto this, remember I say that when I create things, all my shapes are interconnected. The way that works, it's much better. If you put a shape underneath here for a neck, which I could do, I could draw a shape and put it underneath, but I need to make sure then that I select all the points at the very point of the neck points. Otherwise, the neck won't. Well, maybe I'll show you that. It's easier to show you than explain it. Okay. If this were a neck, let's say, I'm going to make it a color that's distinguishable from the shirt, and I'm gonna lower it to the back so you can see. Okay, so I have a neck shape here, and this neck is going to be underneath this part of the process. Okay, so now let's just pretend that I was going to move the points on the neck as if he was craning his neck in one direction or the other. If I move these points, you'll see the shirt doesn't follow. That's because, of course, the neck isn't attached to the shirt. Now, if I wanted to try to mitigate that problem, what I would do is try to move these points to be as close as possible to these points, and I could do that. But it's just, to me, it's just easier just to connect the neck to this shirt shape. It's hard to say in the morning. So the way I do that is, once again, I just add points, and I'm adding the points to this existing shape with my automatic all-purpose tool here, and that creates those points to that shape. But it's not a shape yet, of course. Once again, want to construct the points that are going to make it a shape, and now it's a shape. And so now, if I'm animating this process with SmartBones or whatever, and I'm going to select the right points, when I move these points, you see it stays attached to the shirt. It's just easier to have the shapes all attached. So that's why I do it that way. So anyway, this, of course, wouldn't be the way my neck actually looked. It would be rounded because I would have the head underneath, and I want to be able to see that properly. But that's my torso. So now you know the whole process of not stacking shapes, of creating multiple shapes attached to other shapes, the correct and proper way, and hopefully that answers all those questions. So sorry for any misleading, any problems in that regard. I'm Mike Kelly, and we'll see you on animatorsforum.com.